Hi, I am Nikki, and you are listening to the Edu Leader podcast. This is a place to celebrate fantastic educators, and this is a place teachers can go to learn about amazing things happening outside their classroom. Okay, thank you for listening to the Edu Leader podcast, and today I am really excited to sit and visit with my friend Kelly Francis, who is an instructional coach for a special education cooperative. And Kelly and I have a lot in common because I sort of had this job that she has last year. And when I say sort of, we'll kind of dig into what an instructional coach looks like and why that is so different and how it can be so different based on different needs and basically by the day, right?
That's right.
All right. Kelly, can you tell us a little bit about what your role is and where you work?
Yes. So I work for ANW Special Education Cooperative in Humboldt, Kansas. And I actually was hired on right about a year ago. I was hired on in November of last year. And when I was first hired, I felt like, I knew that I was going to be working with new teachers a lot, and I didn't necessarily have the title of instructional coach at that time. It just kind of evolved and developed. And once I was told, I think this would be the title that would be appropriate for what you do, I really still felt a little bit unsure of what my role was. I mean, I was doing monthly trainings with new teachers and hopefully being somewhat of a support to them. But I'd always been a special ed teacher before. So this was a very new position for me. So thankfully, my director had encouraged me to go to a training on instructional coaching. I believe it was in like the spring of this past school year. And it really opened my eyes to what my role could be and how it could be utilized. And that was super helpful because it just gave me a kind of a clear direction and vision of what I was supposed to be doing and what would be helpful. Which the interesting thing is about instructional coaching is I think you have a vision of what you're supposed to do, but you have to be very fluid and flexible about what's needed. And like I said, I primarily work with new teachers. Any teacher, of course, can utilize an instructional coach, but my focus is primarily new teachers. And so I just, whatever they need, from curriculum, if they need help with curriculum, to just sometimes that little bit of emotional support. I mean, it's a tough field, and sometimes they just need somebody to talk to. And there's just a lot of roles that come out of that title. So
I think in education, I think it is a unique field in that we totally expect for new graduates out of teacher prep to enter a classroom and to be just as prepared to lead a classroom full of kiddos as we do a 30-year veteran. And I think that's where the value of instructional coaching really comes in, because there is no course that can possibly replace experience, in my opinion. And I feel like, especially when it comes to special education, because of the intricacies that go into it. I mean, all of the paperwork is just one piece of it, but then really digging deep into finding out, what are the barriers preventing this kid from being successful in the classroom, and how can we address the root issue while still building the kid up, supporting the family. I mean, it's very complex.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And I've heard that before, as far as it's a unique field in that you expect the new folks to be 100% ready, just as much as an experienced teacher. And I see that, and I think that definitely adds an unneeded stress that's already to a stressful job. So I do love going in and being able to support however I can, because I don't think any of us as teachers will ever forget those first couple years or more that we just kind of felt that, what am I doing? I know I went to school for this, but I really still have no clue what I'm doing. So I love being able to be that support to help.
I was fortunate enough early on in my career to have two really good instructional coaches we had a literacy coach specific with our special education cooperative. I started my career with the Holton Special Ed Co-op. And so we had the amazing Brenda Noakes. Like, she is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to literacy practices. And then as far as behavior and emotional support, we had Tina Hefke, who now works for the BASIS program at Greenbush. And I'm so grateful for the two of them and the support that they provided me. And now I am partly instructional coach for literacy for the Link grant. And so I think just being a reflective practitioner and thinking about how grateful I am for all of that support, I hope that I can pay that forward. And I'm sure, is that kind of how you feel as well?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily have instructional coaches at the beginning of my career, but I had amazing mentors who, that wasn't even necessarily their title. They just came alongside me and just helped me know what I was doing, because I look back at that first year and I'm like, I would never have made it. Yeah, sure, I had gone to college and was trained, but these are human beings we're dealing with. It's not this cut and dry, black and white approach. You have to, there's so much more to it than that. So yeah, I love, like, when I'm going in and helping new teachers, I think back to that time when I was new and had that great support, and it makes a huge difference. And especially when you don't always know how to support someone, just being there, I feel like can say a lot.
Yeah, when we're talking about classrooms, we've talked a lot about relationships and the value of relationships between teacher and student. But I think an important role of the instructional coach is to be an emotional support for the teacher too, because it's an exhausting job. So sometimes we just need to vent, or sometimes we just need another professional to bounce ideas off and think things through. So I think it's a really important role. And thinking through this being your first year as an instructional coach, what advice would you give somebody who's thinking about pursuing an instructional coach job, or taking that as a career path as a teacher leader?
I think for me, and something I would encourage someone who might be considering this role, is that go into it, first of all, with an open mind. Because there are, like, when I went to my instructional coach training, there are some great frameworks out there for how to go about coaching and all that are excellent, and kind of give you a little bit of a vision. But also, you have to keep in mind that you're dealing with people, and those frameworks are great to have, but also just be willing to be flexible and do what is needed based on what that specific teacher needs. So I think it definitely requires some flexibility, and also probably for me, sometimes it's so hard because I want to be able to fix, we're teachers. We naturally want to fix things. I want to be able to fix situations or struggles that teachers are having. And I can't be the fixer, of course. I just can hopefully provide them with some ideas and just be a support to them, and encourage them to come to their own conclusions and solutions and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's definitely, I like it because it's new. It's something new every day, which I love.
I like that you talked about how it's that you can't be a fixer, because I think that's something that's huge. My personality is like yours. I think we're very much alike. I like to be a fixer and to solve the problems. And the part about coaching that is so unique is that it's really about empowerment. That we're not to solve the problems for people. We're to just ask those strategic questions to help people solve problems on their own. And I think that is what is so powerful, but I also think that's what's so challenging about it.
I would agree. And that was kind of one of the eye-openers to me, because again, I hadn't really had a lot of experience even working with an instructional coach. And it's easy when you first start, you're like, I'm going to go in and help, and you're enthusiastic. And then you're like, okay, this is exactly what you said. My role is about empowering them, because obviously I cannot be there all the time, nor do they want me, I'm sure, there all the time. And people need to, just like with our students, I mean, we want them to be empowered. We don't want to always be providing them with the answers. And we may, of course, we don't even always have the answers, but we want our teachers and stuff to be able to be empowered, and that way they can change and grow and just learn from all those experiences.
What would you say has been, do you have any like huge success stories that you can share about kids or a teacher or anything that would, if somebody's listening to this that is an administrator that is thinking about possibly building in an instructional coach position into their budget for next year, do you have any words of wisdom or any tidbits that you would like to offer them?
I would say the biggest thing, I can't necessarily think of a student story, but just because I do so much work with teachers, which the coolest part about that is in doing that work, you are hopefully affecting many students, which is pretty cool. A really neat part about the role. But I would say right this moment in my job, I feel like the biggest thing is just encouragement. I mean, this time of year is such a burnout time of year. Teachers, new teachers especially, are just hitting that mode where they're like, okay, what have I done? Why am I here? And I love kind of some epiphany moments for me is just being able to go into their classrooms and be a pair of outside eyes that can see all the amazing things they're doing. And they live that every day. And so for them, I think it becomes mundane and they don't realize what a difference they're making. And so I get to come in at times and say, this is awesome. Like, you are doing a great job. I noticed this with this student. And I love just seeing the encouragement in their faces. Like it's reflected in their faces oftentimes, and just reminding them that they are making a difference. And we talk a lot about resilience this year with our new teachers. You definitely need to have some resilience in education in those beginning years, especially. And so I bring that up a lot too, and just reminding them of all the positive things that are going on. So yeah, I love that part of it.
What I'm hearing you say is a lot of what's addressing teacher burnout. And, in Kansas, we are facing a huge teacher shortage, particularly in some high needs areas, such as special education. And so what I'm hearing you say is part of your role as an instructional coach is to increase retention in teachers. And I think that's great. I mean, we have highly trained staff. We want to keep them on board. And I think that support that you're giving the new teachers in your district is fantastic. I think that's really something to be proud of and really a valuable thing to contribute to Kansas education. So great work. I love all that you're doing, and I'm sure that you're an inspiration to those teachers and making a huge impact on kids. So that's fantastic.
Well, thank you. It is definitely an honor to be able to do this. I always tell them, like, I do not claim to have all the answers, but if I truly can just be an encouragement to them and just remind them of all the good that they're doing, I feel like that goes a long way, especially with just retaining our good teachers and keeping them.
We've talked in Teacher Leader Cadre about the problem of teachers being siloed and kind of isolated, that we all, we go into our classrooms in the day and then we don't even see each other. Like I remember when I was in the classroom, we teachers met in the bathroom because that was when we could talk to each other in those 3 minutes that we had between kids, right?
Great.
I think having that structure built into your school and your program, that you have opportunities to collaborate, I think that just builds up the strengths of people in the district. And I think that's a great asset to have. So I, for one, am really hoping that schools pay attention to the great things that happen when we can empower teachers through instructional coaching. So I really hope that hopefully with our new governor and some of our new politicians that they are very intentional about funding schools appropriately, and we can build more positions like yours and put more people like you in schools all across Kansas. So I think it's great stuff.
Well, thank you. And I'm very blessed to work with some great administration because they saw the need for this, and we are in a rural area. And so it can be a huge challenge to get special ed teachers. And when you talk about turnover and retention and all, like, it's a big deal here. And so I think that was kind of part of their, I assume that was part of their solution and how they wanted to approach this, is to bring on an instructional coach. And it's been like, it's interesting to look at the numbers, like how many teachers from year to year, the turnover and all that sort of thing, and just hope that it's somehow positively affected by adding roles such as instructional coaching and other various roles. So it'll be interesting to see if it makes a difference at all.
Yeah.
I definitely think it could.
I would love to have a follow-up interview in a couple years and just see if to kind of compare the data to see what that looks like with having.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Kelly. Appreciate having you on here on the EduLeader podcast. And thank you to our listeners for taking the time to listen. We would love if you left a review on iTunes or Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, and let us know what you're thinking. If you have any questions, we would love to answer them. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen.